All right, welcome back. Now, the Swiss government recently announced that it will return $320 million of the money allegedly stolen by Nigeria's late military ruler Sani Abacha. The money was frozen in 2014 by a Swiss court after a legal procedure against his son Abba Abacha. Originally deposited in Luxembourg, it's a fraction of the billions of dollars allegedly looted during Abacha's rule from 1993 to 1998. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari made the recovery of stolen assets a major part of his 2015 election campaign, and this will be the largest yet. But recovering stolen assets of government is not an easy task because it's quite challenging tracking stolen funds moved out of Nigeria to Europe and other parts of the world. Some of the funds are stashed in so-called safe havens, while some have already been converted into working capital used to purchase expensive properties in places like the United Kingdom, the United States of America, Dubai, etc. Now, to effectively combat this menace, cooperating with international agencies and anti-corruption organizations outside Nigeria becomes important. A workshop was held in Lagos recently for anti-corruption campaigners in Nigeria with NGOs, journalists, lawyers, anti-corruption agencies, the police, bloggers, and other interested persons in attendance. The focus of the workshop is how to track funds stolen from Nigeria and kept abroad with the aid of technology. It is believed that one of the major challenges why corruption is still thriving in Nigeria today is because there's not enough knowledge on how to track the funds once they leave the shores of this country. The training, with the collaboration of international partners and foreign journalists, explains step-by-step approach on how to use technology to track the funds and actually detect where they are kept and how they've been put to use. Earlier, I spoke to some of the speakers at the event and their thoughts about the corruption in Africa and, of course, Nigeria, and how Nigeria can fight corruption, fight the anti-corruption war now successfully. And again, Nigerians in the diaspora, what exactly they should be doing to support the government now in its quest for to fight the corruption war. First on the lineup of interviews I had is Professor Ishe Sage, a professor of law, senior advocate of Nigeria, and chairman of the Presidential Advisory Council on Corruption. Now, Professor Sage, thank you very much for joining us on the program. The government of President Buhari has been fighting corruption since inception, but some people say there are more corrupt people in government. That's in Buhari's government now. What do you make of that?
Well, you know, I find that Nigerians just make statements like that. There are very corrupt people in the cabinet. Who? And what's the evidence? You can't just go picking up people just because somebody says something which has no proof, with no basis. If we did that, you know, Nigerians, they'll be mentioning names all over the place, and half of us will be in jail. So, yes, if you can mention a name and produce evidence of corruption, whether it's in the cabinet or not, it'll be dealt with. Because, in fact, a person who is in the cabinet and is still engaged in looting would bring opprobrium in the whole government. And those are the sort of people that the government will be the president will be extremely upset with, more than any other type of person.
Now, in your brief capacity as chairman of the Presidential Advisory Committee on Corruption, which area now do you think government needs to focus on now in the fight against corruption?
No, well, it's not a matter of where. To start with, federal government really agencies only prosecute, well, maybe I should rephrase that. Some federal government agencies only prosecute state actors. But broadly speaking, what is happening is that the prosecution or the anti-corruption war must start with the high-profile persons. Because, one, they are well known to the public, they are publicly exposed persons, politically exposed persons, well known. Secondly, they are the ones who filch away or loot billions, very excessive sums that are mind-boggling. So, one, if you go after those people, you are getting a lot more of your resources back. Two, because of their importance in society, they are being dealt with sends a message down through to the lowest person in the land. So that's where to start from. The high-profile persons who have been in politics or in public service, mainly. And of course, bankers. People in that sort of category of persons.
Some Nigerians say our presidential system is expensive to run and gives room for the pilfering away of government resources. Do you subscribe to the call that Nigeria reverts to parliamentary system and scrap either the Senate or the House of Representatives?
Yes, there may be some point there, particularly when those in government appoint too many aides, assistant for this, assistant for that, begin to build up hundreds of people in government, and they all have to be paid salaries, offices have to be allocated to them. So I don't think it's because of the type of government alone. The orientation of the person in power to prune down the number and make everybody worth his salt, pay, really carry out duties which make him worthwhile in government. That's very, very important. So it depends a lot. If you look at this government, there was great reluctance to appoint many ministers. If the Constitution had not insisted that there must be one minister from each state, maybe we would have had about 18 ministers. But that compulsion in the Constitution compelled the president to appoint 36 ministers because there are 36 states. So there's a problem with our Constitution too.
All right, we'll take a short break now, and when we come back, I'll be speaking to the man who actually initiated that workshop, and he'll be sharing his own ideas on how best Nigeria and indeed Africa could tackle this issue of corruption. On DEJI360, we don't just ask the questions. What is wrong with amending the Constitution the way the National Assembly members have been doing it? We seek answers.
Constitution is constituent. Our problem is not lack of laws. Our problem is lack of the willpower to implement our laws.
Answers that provide clarity.
While we negotiate, we should try to make it a point that the girls must be complete.
The clarity you need to make informed judgment so that you can make the right decision and take action. People are saying it is you politicians that are responsible for this, that you are the reason why this is happening.
All these dollars that call themselves governors in this country?
I wish we had people like Tony at the National Assembly.
God forbid that I go to join that band.
DEJI360, providing clarity to issues. All right, welcome back. Still on that forum on anti-corruption, the man who actually initiated and organized it is Professor Gbenga Oduto of the Kent School of Law, actually, in the United Kingdom. Thank you very much for joining us on the program, Prof. Let me start by asking you, from your research into the monies that have actually left the shores of Africa to Europe, can you let us into some of your discoveries?
Well, we have discovered as a pattern that over the last 10 years, nothing less than 400 billion naira, sometimes one would even say up to about 200 million pounds, leaves Africa on an annual basis into the waiting hands of the financial institutions and banks of the developed countries. This amount represents a huge loss for Africa and for Nigeria particularly, in terms of funds that could have been used for development of hospitals, good roads, water systems, sanitation systems, even courts and the operation of the criminal justice system. All that becomes impossible if we just lose this amount of money into the banks of developed states. So that at the end of the day, at the age of 23 years old, 24, 25, you are already on your way to owning a property in the UK because the banks will give you a mortgage. Even at that age, by 40, 50 at most, you've paid up, you have the house to yourself. But that's because there's capital available at home. There's capital in the banks, there's capital in the entire economy. But that's not the case of the Nigerian young man. The Nigerian young man at 25 is still at home. He's still suffering from inability to even pay his school fees because, again, the system has been sucked out and the money has been taken elsewhere. We have a problem with corruption, no doubt about that. Nigerians pay bribes on a daily basis. I think there was a study done recently that says up to 80 million naira is being lost annually in bribes that we pay to ourselves. Now, what that means is we have to face that problem. But that's a separate problem from where our monies go when we are bribed by multinational corporations or we are bribed by other political actors in other states, and then it comes into the hands, briefly, into the hands of our own politicians or politically exposed persons, and then goes back again into the financial system of the developed world. It's a massive problem, it's a systematic problem, and it's one that we should be addressing.
Now, tell us how easy it is for huge amounts of money to leave Nigeria and find refuge in the West.
Exactly. It's mind-boggling. We just don't know how it becomes so normalized in international relations that some states in the world will become the receivers of stolen property on a systematic basis. And they have been doing this now not only for decades, perhaps for over a century. You know the whole talk about secret banking system of the Swiss. It's not just the Swiss. It's the tax havens, Jersey, Bermuda, and all these small islands that are essentially outposts of the UK, the US, and France. And they are a well-oiled machine to collect funds that are stolen from other lands and to use them to the service of the Western economies that are already doing well in the first place. So it's a very disappointing situation. It's something that must stop. It's something that is being addressed now, and it is mind-boggling that it went on in the first place. As I said, it's not about Nigeria alone. We should not confuse facts. We have a problem of corruption, but we are not the only country that has fallen into the trap of the Western financial system, who seem to depend on monies that come into their land from stolen and from being craftily taken from other lands.
Now, from your research, do you think the West is encouraging corruption in Nigeria by providing safe havens now for stolen funds?
Oh, certainly. Certainly, the problem of corruption in Nigeria is tied to the problem of corruption in Western countries. If the Western countries do not provide a ready hand for receiving stolen funds, two things will happen. One, Nigerians will steal less because there would be no place to hide the stolen loot. Two, that which they steal will find itself still in the same financial system where it will provide loans, where it will provide employment. I'm not in any way suggesting that corruption can be a good thing. But as a matter of fact, there's a difference between corruption where the money percolates and stays in the same country and corruption where the money leaves entirely the system, perhaps never to be seen again. These are secret bank accounts. When the owner of the money dies, that's the end. Sometimes even with the owner of the money still being alive, he may not be able to reach it because there are so many ways and tricks with which these tax havens can keep the money within the system and it will never come back again.
Now, no doubt, a huge amount of money has left this country. What do you think Nigeria can actually do to keep track of these funds and possibly recover them?
We have to demand for our money back. We have to realize that nobody wants to give up such advantages. I'm talking about billions of naira and eventually billions of dollars of any currency ending up to service the economy of any state. There's no way that state is going to willingly give back the money. Let's take example of the Abacha funds. $5 billion was supposed to have been stolen by this one man. $5 billion. He has died now. He's been dead since 1999, I think. Up till now, we are struggling to get back just $1 billion out of this $5 billion. Switzerland paid $600 million back. I think the US paid about $300 million back. So that brings us up to about 900 million. The UK has not given any of the Abacha funds back. And they have in their system up to 1.8 billion of these funds. They have not given it back because sometimes giving it back is not just Nigeria's money they will be giving back. They will be giving back money stolen from other countries. Their own financial systems might even collapse. Hence, if you want your money back, you have to be dogged about it. You have to be diplomatic about it. You have to make use of existing laws, but you have to carry your people along. Your people should also be part of the noise, making it impossible for the other states not to act. And that's one of the things we should do. And this is why this conference was designed. This is a conference designed to make the average Nigerian, to make the blogger, the student, the activist know that this job is not for the EFCC alone. If you can prove that the president of the Senate, or indeed any other politician, has a property that he should not have, has a bank account that he should not have, if you can go on the internet and find this proof, you can not only make money from it through the Whistleblowing Act, but you'll be doing your country a favor. And what we are trying to do is to reduce the space for the corrupt class. There's so much ignorance allowing them to continue. There's so much laid-back attitude of the people themselves and then the regulators that makes it possible for people to know that all they have to do is steal money, collect bribes, and they will get away with it. The more of us that see it as our job, as something we can train for, as something we can use to contribute back to the system that produces us, the better for all of us.
What do you think the role of Nigerians in the diaspora like yourself should be doing to ensure that stolen funds are repatriated to Nigeria?
The Nigerians in diaspora are key to this struggle to get back the stolen funds from developed states. One, they are the ones who see politically exposed persons travel from Nigeria, coming to the Western capitals and spending money lavishly and living in the finest hotels and buying properties in the places that only the millionaires in those countries can buy properties. By keeping silence over such developments, we in the diaspora might be contributing to the problem. So Nigerians in diaspora must learn to whistleblow. It's much easier to whistleblow in the UK, in the US. You just need to walk to the regulators and say, there's someone here who has a property that I know he should not have because he's a politically exposed person from the country that I come from and which he comes from. That will immediately make the politicians, the police and the security office or officials there, they will swing into action. I have no doubt about that. So the diasporans have to contribute to this journey of getting back our money, and they can also be a nuisance to the developed states that they are living in. We have to realize that most people are abroad, are leaving their countries not out of their own happiness. They are walking across deserts. They are swimming and literally sinking in the seas just because they are trying to seek a better life. They would actually prefer to be at home, where the language they speak is the language that everybody understands, not a place where they will be looked down on. So if you are really unhappy about this as a diasporan, you have to try and put a stop to the practice of corruption and the safe attitude that the corrupt class have in thinking that their monies will be safe abroad and nobody is going to keep silent, everybody's going to keep silent about it. Nigerians in diaspora must see this as part and parcel of their tasks as Nigerians.
All right, we'll take another short break now, and when we come back, I'll be talking to a reporter now who was actually there at the forum. I'm talking about Lionel Fall, who actually works for Finance Uncovered. He'll be sharing his own thoughts now on how Africa can deal with this issue of anti-corruption. Stay with us, don't go away. On DEJI360, we don't just ask the questions. What is wrong with amending the Constitution the way the National Assembly members have been doing it? We seek answers.
Constitution is constituent. Our problem is not lack of laws. Our problem is lack of the willpower to implement our laws.
Answers that provide clarity.
While we negotiate, we should try to make it a point that the girls must be complete.
The clarity you need to make informed judgment so that you can make the right decision and take action. People are saying it is you politicians that are responsible for this, that you are the reason why this is happening.
All these dollars that call themselves governors in this country.
I wish we had people like Tony at the National Assembly.
God forbid that I go to join that band of journalistic.
DEJI360, providing clarity to issues.